Ultimately, we have only one choice. We have free will. The free will is to make one and one choice. Do we choose suffering or do we choose peace in this moment? That's it. It's that simple. That's the only choice you ever have to make. How do you make that choice? Are you choosing to resist what is, or do you choose non-resistance? Do you choose non-attachment? Do you choose acceptance, allowance? Why would anyone choose suffering? Because we choose it unconsciously, because we have been unconsciously conditioned into it. Because without consciousness, the mind takes over, and the mind creates its own sense of self, which is called ego. And ego survives on suffering. Ego has created an identity of suffering. So without us choosing suffering, ego ceases to be. That's why the mind continues to lead us into making unconscious choices of resistance, of suffering, because that mind-made self wants to continue existing, and it has built at the very foundation of its sense of self into its identity suffering. So now that you're aware of this, you can recognize why you have made that choice in the past. It wasn't you. It was unconscious. It was conditioned. It was programmed. Now that you are conscious of this, you can make a different choice. That choice is acceptance. That choice is peace. Now you realize suffering is a choice. Always. It is always within your power. You are so free that you can choose bondage. Why would you choose bondage? Because you're not aware that you're choosing it. When you become aware that you've been unconsciously perpetuating suffering by allowing the mind to live through you, to become you when it isn't you, you can make a conscious choice for peace. You can make a deliberate and aware choice to allow, to accept what is, to choose non-resistance, to choose acceptance, to choose surrender, and so choose peace. Now the mind will continue to try to trick you. It will revolt against this because it knows the arising of your consciousness and your making this choice for peace is the death of its made-up self, is the death of ego, is the end of this elusive identity, this false self, the sense of which is derived from suffering. So it will scream. It will try to trick you. It will try to lead you anywhere away from the now, which is where all your peace and power is. Your consciousness exists now. You are consciousness. That's what you are. You're not this mind thing. You are not this construct. You are not the made-up thought of self, the idea or concept of self. You are. That is the essential nature of you. You are being. Nothing added, nothing removed, for nothing can be. You are the eternal. You are life. You are now. You are presence. Ego, the mind, tries to draw you away from presence because in the drawing you away from it, it convinces you to resist the now. The choice of resistance generates suffering, and so it feeds itself. It feeds itself from this by subtly, sometimes less subtly, but mostly subtly drawing your focus, your attention, your awareness away from what is. When your focus is not on what is, you can't accept what is. You are subtly resisting it unconsciously, therefore generating suffering for yourself. This is commonly experienced as a general sense of unease, which then can escalate all the way into anxiety and extreme levels of discomfort. You can always choose to return to now. There is never anything stopping you from it. Not the mind. The mind is a tool. The mind is not you. You are not submissive to mind. Mind submits to you. You can choose to assert the dominance of presence now, any given moment, which is always now. In so doing, in choosing to return to presence, you are returning to your power. You're returning to peace. You are returning to a state of surrender, a state of allowance, of acceptance of what is. By returning to presence, you generate no resistance, and so create no suffering for yourself and experience no suffering in yourself. So how do you do this if you haven't made this choice before? And you've only not made the choice because you didn't know it was a choice. Now you know. Now you have awareness arising. Now consciousness is arising within you, and so presence can arise. A way to begin making this choice and to make the making of the choice a natural habit is to begin feeling your own presence. When you are feeling presence, you are in direct contact with it. You are in the now, and you know it. You know it experientially. You know it directly. You are knowing it without the mind. The mind is the realm of thinking. It is the realm of imagination. Thinking is not knowing. Knowing is experienced. So experience your own presence. Feel it. A way to do this is to literally feel the presence of your physical form. Feel the presence of your body. Feel that it has presence. Feel into it. Notice that even without moving, in fact, this is most powerfully known and understood through stillness, keeping your body very still. Notice that even when it is not moving, even when there is no external stimuli present, you can sense it. You can feel your body from the inside. Not something touching your skin, not a sensation on the outside, but the inside. You can feel the presence of yourself. Feel your own presence. Go deeply into it. Notice what it feels like to you. An internal sort of tingling, zapping, a vibration. Does it feel like sort of pressure? An energy that is emanating from within you, from inside of your skin. That is you. That is your presence. Focus upon this, and you are choosing peace. By making this choice, you are choosing non-resistance. And you'll notice the mind is still there. The mind-made self even may still be there. That's okay. It never needed to go anywhere. It just needed presence to become more dominant in order for it to become submissive to presence. By choosing presence, you are choosing peace, and you feel it. You know it directly. It's something you can only experience. It cannot be comprehended. It cannot really be explained. All of these words are just pointers. They're just signposts. They are not the experience. The map is not the landscape. You must experience for yourself in order to know yourself and to know the power of yourself, the power of your presence, your power to choose peace in any given moment. When you are in presence, the mind and the mind-made self cannot dominate you and trick you into choosing suffering. You are conscious. You are aware. You don't fall for the trick. You recognize that it's a trick. You recognize it's just an illusion. And so the illusion doesn't have to stop for you to see through it. So, begin the practice of identifying with your internal self, your sense of self, your awareness of self. Awareness of the body is awareness of presence. When you are rooted in presence, you generate no suffering. You experience no suffering. You become consciously aware that suffering itself is an illusion. Pain is an illusion. Problem is illusion. None of that exists. What exists is, and you are. Reclaim this for yourself now. Don't make it a future practice. It does not need to be. It doesn't exist in the future. It only exists now. The mind will tell you you can't possibly reach this state now. Why do you think it's telling you that? Because it doesn't want ego to fade. Because it wants you to keep feeding it. It wants you to keep generating the suffering, to think there's no way I could possibly attain this peace, this presence for myself now. There must be something else. It must be more complex, more intricate, more complicated. Why is the mind telling you that? Because that's a choice to suffer. And ego has built an identity on suffering. Ego doesn't want to feel diminished. Ego is afraid of losing itself, losing its identity. So it will tell you anything to convince you not to make the only choice you ever have in the only time you can ever make it, right now. Choose to begin disidentifying from ego. See that it is illusion. See that it is continuously lying. Lying to trick you into choosing suffering, because that's how it perpetuates itself. Make the choice right now, not to suffer anymore. And the way you make that choice is by becoming present. And a way, there are many ways to become present, but a powerful way is to focus and feel into your presence. Feel that you have presence. Focus your awareness upon it. Then you are no longer identified with the mind, and you can observe it from this place. You'll see it doesn't go away, but you are no longer ruled by it. You're no longer attached to it. Mind is just another form. Thought is just another form. Forms come and go. They mean nothing. They do not shake you. Your sense of self is rooted in presence, and presence is infinite, eternal, absolute, and unshakable. Know yourself now. You have this power. There is nothing stopping you. You do not need authorization. You do not need permission. You can choose right now. Peace.